Do you agree that, it's time that we all wake up and take responsibility, even for our ancestors that did not know any better?
Been waiting patiently to have this kind of conversation. Well, it's Wake Up with KC, and today I want to talk about sci-fi. I talked about aliens, UFOs, and back in the 70s, there was movies like Star Wars, then a TV series, Star Trek, that led to movies. What if there is actually a connection and spirituality as well? There's a connection to all of that. And I have a very special guest, Laura Banks, who joins us today. Laura, welcome to the show.
It's so great to be here. It is so great to talk about that.
It is. And I've always, growing up as a little kid, I remember the TV show Star Trek, Beam Me Up Scotty, with Captain Kirk and Spock and all that. And I always wondered, what if there's some truth that TV and movies get us a glimpse of the possibilities of other life out from our small little world that we're so small-minded.
Yes.
Thinking.
Yeah. Well, I believe Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, was visionary. He was one of the first TV producers to allow a Black woman, Nichelle Nichols, to be a main character. He brought in an Asian character with George Takei. He brought in a Russian character with Walter Koenig. And that in itself was really sci-fi at that time, right? And what is science fiction? What is the universe? What are the planets? What are they all doing, singing, saying to us? Really, it's about what if it's universeness? What if, like, each nationality we have almost represents its own planet? We're either in harmony, like as an astrologer, I look at harmony and trines, or we're squaring each other. We're squared off to like box. So I do believe there is a lot of truth in the writing of very specific filmmakers and TV producers, to circle back to your question.
And how did you land the part with Ricardo Montalban in Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan? What was that experience like?
It was extraordinary. I mean, at the time, you don't know what you're making. It's true. You're just making a movie. And I saw the part in a Dramalog, which is a local Hollywood newspaper that I bought weekly and read religiously in the back to see for what parts might be available to a newcomer with no connections in LA. And sure enough, there was an ad for a person with exactly my measurements, my height, and my look. And I called Central Casting right away and I said, this is me. This is me. This is my. So they said, come on down. So I went over there to Sunset Boulevard and got in front of the casting directors at the first level. And then they said, yes, you are obviously 5'11" and blonde. And Lana Clarkson, actually the famous actress who was killed by Phil Spector, originally had the role, and she went home for Christmas, and that's how I got it. Kind of a tragic thought there, but that's just spooky stuff. Went then to Paramount Pictures, met Nick Meyer, the director, and a couple of other people, and talked for a while, and they said yes to me. And they said, all right, you're going to wardrobe. So I went right to wardrobe and worked for a month at Paramount on the film. A lot of extras at the beginning, and it kept getting narrowed down to it was just me navigating the ship. And a lot of the fight sequence you will see in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And every time that camera was on and rolling, I was in it. I was an actress, and I don't think the other players were that as engaged. I think I had the right look for Nick, and I had the right acting chops to get front and center like that and get on the box cover. And really, it's this picture of me that went around the world that many people would be familiar with, that I have signed many an autograph for. So that is how I got the role.
And is Ricardo just like he is behind scenes, he just seemed so, sophisticated, wise, his whole demeanor and personality. It is that like what he's like offset off, behind the scenes?
Very much a gentleman, very old school, Spanish, of course, born in Mexico, but of Spanish heritage, and that just gives off this what I call sprezzatura, which is Italian for charisma.
Mhm.
Shatner has it, Montalban has it, some of these other actors I've worked with, Sean Young, she has it. A lot of big personalities have this undefinable vibe coming off their bodies. Jack Nicholson has it, and Montalban would give me his seat when I needed it. And here he had a back injury incident as a matinee idol many years ago, and still would let me sit in his director's chair. And sometimes I would take it and not think, here's this guy in pain, and he didn't ever ask me to get up. Uh, just very ingratiating. Didn't get that he was a movie star. I'll never forget working with Ricardo, and it's interesting that I was put next to him as his kin because I am a quarter Spanish. So my mother's maiden name was Alcina. So I don't know if they saw a little bit of the Spanish blood in me to put me next to him, but I think many will tell you that they believe that Montalban as Khan is one of the greatest villains of all time.
Wow. And
Mhm.
you've been not only in that, but you've also played, a scientist. You also played a warrior. You
My career, Kimberly.
you're many. I believe there's like many aspects in, what we'd like to experience, or a part of us that has been there before in a past life. And then we come in and we play the part again, but in a different era, different time period.
Like a shell of it, actually, is how I see it, Kimberly. Exactly. Many lives, many masters, right? I mean, I can get esoteric on this with you, and I think I can go
Oh,
deep here,
please
right?
do.
So, yes, I have a 12th house sun. So, and I have a Jupiter 12th house, Pluto 12th house, all conjunct the ascendant. So, this makes my past lives very present in this lifetime. And it's been a disconnect for me in this lifetime. I channel a lot of my energies toward Archangel Michael, and I bring him in often because I do need guidance, because I work on a subliminal level a lot and I see and hear things that other people don't, and I think you understand. And
Yes.
so it throws you off from day to day. So in this lifetime, I led an army into battle in a movie in the Philippines, okay? And there's a question, in a past lifetime, I was a warrior. Okay, I was born in the sign of the warrior in this lifetime, a very masculine sign of Aries. Mars driven. So while I didn't do it for real, but there was this shadow piece that needed to enact it in this lifetime in front of a camera. Now, was I eaten by a monster in past lifetimes? I don't know. But in my second movie, I was eaten by a monster, so I don't know if I have in past lifetimes been eaten by a monster. Um, so I've done so many things, right? It's hard for me to keep track, and I'm in kind of a stall mode now. I mean, just to not pretend for a minute that I've got it figured out, like moving into what's next is like moving through kind of mud, right now. Like, how do we self-express in this time of so much repression and so much fear and anxiety? I turn off the TV set, right? But
Hmm.
what's next? Is it another book for me or for anyone listening? Is it another movie? So yes, there was Wheels of Fire, my first film, where I was a woman headhunter leading post-apocalyptic world into truth and with the true believers, and just this whole crazy
Hmm.
movie. And then Demon to Paradise was my second film, and Demon is on Netflix, and my big memory of that was when I was actually eaten, the night I was eaten. I like to say eaten because it's funny. I was sucked into the ground. I
Yeah.
remember putting on the mascara for my close-up, and I'm like, oh, gee, Fay Ray went through this, thinking of all the famous actresses that have been eaten by other monsters and taken in by giant gorillas and things. And
What?
uh, And then I was scared because I had to do my own stunt, which is to jump back into this hole with a mattress in it, high-tech production there. And I took a shot of alcohol before that stunt. And then my third film, Retreads, was with Michael Rooker. Michael Rooker is a very big star to this day, right? He's big now in Marvel and all that. And I had top billing in that feature. He had fourth billing, which is amazing. But Michael Rooker, before that, he was in Henry of a Portrait of a Serial Killer, which is a big movie. But Michael and I worked together on Retreads, where I was kidnapped indeed for my secrets as a physicist, and comedy, Charlie Sheen's brother, Estevan, he was in it. Good times had by all in Retreads, and like that.
And when during this acting career that sounds amazing with the experience that you've had, when did you discover that spiritual essence of you in the process of all that?
I started when I was about 5, so it started before any kind of really. I had a small career as far as a window, but and then I went into nutrition and helping people through Dr. Pressman Association. We focused on radio programming and broadcasting and product development because I felt that was my calling. In fact, in previous lifetimes, I had gotten a reading in my teens that I had helped the medicine man of a tribe powder down herbs and get them to people. And the minute I had a conversation with Alan Pressman on the phone, I knew my molecularly changed, that my responsibility was to this man and to getting his message out there with his 17 books and 5 textbooks and broadcasts in New York City and celebrity practice, just everything Pressman and I were about. That kind of derailed my acting, quote unquote, but that's okay, because that was my karmic proposal in this lifetime. I started understanding about spirit when my mother taught me about astrology when I was 5 years old. And she taught me that I had a grandparent who was born with a veil. Are you familiar with the veil concept?
Vaguely.
Extra piece of skin on the forehead. You're born with an extra piece of skin right here that's to protect the third eye, is the conversation around that.
Mm-hmm.
I know I was always extremely sensitive, always the artist. To this day, I have to be by myself a lot to recharge and to kind of survive. So, I think spiritual people are like in the Minority Report, the kind of people that just tremble with knowledge a lot of the time. We're like these jellyfish out of shells, kind of taking it all in, and we always have to be protecting ourselves with the white light and things. But my mother was an astrologer.
Very well.
Right, I could see that in you. Always freaking out. No. My brother Robert, he passed away at a very early age, committed suicide, and that was a very hard lesson for me. Before that, he had schizophrenia. Mental illness is so real in this country, more than ever. Anxiety, depression, bipolar plagues us as a culture. And when I knew the moment so I started having these psychic experiences, Kimberly, where I left my body, like the moment Robert died. Well, the day before, I told my mom he's going to die, so I knew he was going to die, which was enough already in that moment. And sure enough, he did die, and I left my body. I car as far as I could to where the accident was, and then the moment he died, I know 100%, I left my body, and I went to him, and I felt myself lift with him. So I guess he wanted some presence, or maybe I wanted it. It's a good question. Who wanted it, right? Have you ever spoken to other guests that leave their body to be with a loved one as they're passing? That to me was pretty cool.
Yeah, I would be fascinated by that experience. I've had some out of body experiences, and it's just mind blowing. And then you're like, at first when it started happening, I was like, did that actually happen, or am I losing?
When did that happen to you? What happened? I'm dying to know.
The first time I felt like I was in a dream, and like a few times it was I'm looking at myself doing something, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. I'm like, actually, I'm watching myself do something here.
You're witnessing your behavior. Yeah, you left your body. Yeah, there's a book about mysticism. And right now, am I looking into the camera of everybody listening, and then I'm looking at you and I go like that?
Yeah,
I need a
pretty much.
director here. Yeah, pretty much. Does it matter? Doesn't
No.
matter. Okay. I like to look at you. So it's called they call it mysticism because actually there's a mist that happens sometimes. And there's a book I poured into every kind of book I can on higher consciousness in college, and had out of body experiences and apportations and experiences of being one with a tree and um, the time I went into this, it was right before Robert passed, actually, my whole car went into this cloud. So sometimes right before a spiritual experience, you will enter a cloud of unknowing, they call it. And so I was in this cloud. I couldn't see what I was driving. I stopped the car and then the cloud just disappeared. And I knew that was mystical. So maybe, and I'm here with you to break this down in some cases for the first time with a conversation with you, with anyone about this. Maybe spirit or ancestor or guidance has to take you
But
in
you hit.
first.
So this is what happens to me when I'm hearing truth. It's like electricity running through my body.
Yeah,
It's fascinating.
right. It
Woo.
is. And so then, you go through this cloud of unknowing. This is maybe angels crowding in, or it's some sort of an entity of goodness. Because when you
Our source.
die, I think you do head toward good. I think there is a good that happens. I don't understand going toward a bad. You can't go toward a bad, right? So you're moving toward, maybe you could die. So you get into this cloud, and then the cloud popped, and then I drove to a hotel, and I got out of my car, and I walked into a restaurant. This is moments before Robert died. And I popped out of my body, and I saw myself walking around the restaurant until this guy comes over and goes, "Are you okay? You need to sit down." And they sat me down, and I popped back into my body. And what was that? Another time I flew with someone Alan and I literally woke up the next day next to each other. We went, did we just, what just? And sure enough, we both go, flew together.
Those are
What's
fascinating.
that? What's that? We flew.
One time I was in an elevator, and in my dream, I'm in an elevator, and it was like I felt something come, like I was coming out of my body, and all of a sudden, all these pictures and movies were going so fast, and I was telling it, like whoever, I was like, "Can you slow down? I can't get all this." And then, boom! It was like a thrust went, like I slammed
Yes,
something to my
yes.
body.
That's what I described it, kind of
Uh-huh.
you had to enter something.
And I woke
Wow.
up going, and it was like when I'm half
Were
asleep,
you in
half
danger?
awake.
Were
No,
you in
it
danger in
was
that
just
moment?
so much data I was getting.
What were you doing at the time? Did that just come in out of nowhere?
I was in my bed. I was like half asleep, half awake, just about to like wake
Ah,
up. And
Twilight, lucid. You were lucid. Well, certainly, there is something to be said for that state of consciousness and that theta state. That if we can get ourselves there on a regular basis, stuff does surface, stuff does come to us. I just finished producing a subliminal program that we can listen to at night to call in money and love. And I've been in a situation to wanting to produce that for 10 years. And everything comes from the subconscious, right? So if we can reprogram that subconscious mind, things will start to come to us very, very quickly. We can play with time. And the reason I ask you why you were in danger is because usually, like the one time I had that frame per frame experience you're talking about, is when I was in a car crash almost dying. I've almost died I've died 3 times in movies and almost died probably, I'd say, a few times in this lifetime. Once was a really bad car crash in Lawrence, Kansas, where I was going to school. And I did see my life flash before me frame per frame, frame per frame per frame per frame per frame per frame per frame. And what do they say? Like, before you die, you've got to pack your bag. You've got to see everything that happened. And if you see a loved one or an elderly person and their eyes are rolling in their head, don't disturb them. I even had a priest in the hospital tell me that once. I said, "Oh, I want to talk to my mother." He goes, "Oh, no, she's sorting it out." So why do you think we need to sort out our lives before we move on, Kimberly? I don't have an answer. I'm genuinely wondering what you think.
well, I don't think it's that concept or perspective, honestly.
I want
When
to hear what yours is.
Well, you know what? Oh my God, this is so fascinating. I love talking about this stuff. Okay, so I actually have conversations with my higher self, and I ask, hey, I've heard about this. about, people seeing their loved ones on the other side. And I was taught in a religion that you go to heaven or hell. But if someone's seeing their grandmother sitting at the edge of the bed, she's not in heaven, she's not in hell, she's in this realm of, or like an invisible that we can't see.
A parallel universe.
Yes. And I'm like, okay, so when we're taught to believe all these other, you're going to go to hell for this and that and whatnot. But then I've heard of people like right before they take that last breath, all of a sudden peace comes over them and they're actually seeing a loved one that's already gone to that other side that comes to like greet them when they
Right.
cross
Now, is
over.
that a natural thing in the brain that creates this sort of like storybook? Is there true life after death? Is there hell? Is there heaven? We can only conjecture. And my personal evidence is there is a separate soul from the body. There's no way there's anything. Look, we're 97% water. The planet is 97% water. We use only 3% of our brain, which means the 97% we're not using. Everything in your DNA is actually air. It's all space. They discovered in space, it's 97% space, the final frontier. So if it's all space, that means it's all energy. And that we look like corporeals, but we're actually light and stardust and space. So we're moving around in this universe with these other people, and we're basing it on how much money do you have in the bank, and who are you married to, and where do you live, and what's your dog look like? When in fact, we're living these multiple lives, and it's just crazy, isn't it? It's almost like a survival. Why don't we just live with this consciousness? I know that at one time we did.
Yes, but then man created religion.
Religion.
Yes. To suppress, control, manipulate, have power. And I go back to history. I love going back in history. We have the misconception of who we are and how we were created. We're taught that Adam and Eve were the first male and female. And I read that book and I was like, well, wait a minute. Cain killed Abel and I guess he got exiled and left. But then shortly later, he came back with a wife. Where'd the wife come from?
Yeah. Well, there is certainly a lot of mythology there. I do believe in saints. I believe there are saintly people. I was with a guru for a while, Guru Mai. She was a saint. I got a lot of what's called Shaktipat from her, where she would come around with a peacock feather, and I just feel the energy shooting up my back. Extraordinary. Jesus Christ was a saint. He was a saint. I'm sure this man lived. I'm sure he healed. At another time, alchemy, air used to be in a different way. Like I had this, I went into a sweat lodge once in this course I took called Warrior Camp and Wizard Camp, which is this great course if you could take it with a company called Peak Potentials. I hope they're still producing this course. And I went into a sweat lodge and I saw Archangel Michael, who is my guy, and he came up to me and he's huge. Archangel Michael's like 14 feet. These angels are enormous.
Mm-hmm.
And his eye was like up against my eye, and it was huge. And he wanted me to kind of be fun with him and play with him and make him laugh. Like the angel wanted some entertainment for me to get what I wanted right out of my angel. And so we had that moment. And then we came out of the sweat lodge and we were one with nature. It's like when you take psychedelics. It's like what's between our brain and nature? Nothing. But we so separate from nature and religion. So there are saints, right? There are saints. I kind of digress here.
They're just labeled as saints, but they were masters. They were teachers.
So at one point, Jesus Christ and others could take, the sky was alchemical, that we had energies in the atmosphere that we could pull a piece of air and heal the elder. Like this was a vision I had in the sweat lodge. Getting back to that, was I saw all my ancestors going back 7 generations, Native American. They were all around a fire warming themselves. And they brought the elders to the center of the circle to heal them the most. And just the circle itself was healing the elders. And then we kind of came out of the circle out of the tent into the starlight, and someone was playing with an orb, like an orb, and bouncing it up and down in the air. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is an orb. This is so much fun. What is it? And another person told me that's planet Earth. that was like, and that was all energies everywhere. And that's how that elder explained to me how we, at one time in history, we could heal the air. We've killed it off with all the electricity, but it used to have energetic principles that you could use to heal.
Wow.
And that's a religion. Like, what is religion? Like an understanding of, maybe that's religion. Christ laid hands, Gandhi. There are people, because I had an out of body experience with Gandhi where he showed up, which means I know he lives on in spirit, because he came to me when I was shooting a movie in the Philippines, of all things. I was really sick, and I went into spontaneous yogic positions in the middle of the night. Gandhi visited my hotel in the middle of the jungle of the Philippines.
Wow. And then, noticing in history, it's like, okay, the Israelites did not build those pyramids. There's no way. They didn't have like what I know now, with the cranes and, cutting and, and then to come to find out there's 3 pyramids in several other countries too that line up with Orion. They positioned and
Wow, I didn't know that.
okay, yes. And it's fascinating because I'm like, okay,
Yes,
they
Teotihuacan. Yeah.
and I'm like,
Teotihuacan in Mexico is lined up audio sound perfectly with their mystical snakes all over the side of their pyramids, the pyramid of the sun, the pyramid of the moon. If you walk through, give me a break. They had that technology back then? I don't think so. So they
well,
were channeling UFOs, God,
so
ancestors,
they
sorcery,
knew about
energy.
mathematics. Who was the first writing? What was the first language? The Sumerian writing on the cuneiform, the tablets and whatnot. That's when everything started and created. So if that's the case, then who told them that? How did they come up with that? They had guidance from a highly evolved being. Then you get geometry. They
So
got,
what's happening now? What's happening now, Kimberly? Are we in any guidance at all? What do you see happening now?
oh my gosh, a huge major shift.
Okay, with the Aquarian, well, certainly astrologically, we're in the age of Aquarius finally, because Jupiter and Saturn just went to Aquarius, which is super good, and the planets were in the exact same spot as the Spanish epidemic, the Spanish flu in 1918, as they were when COVID happened. Same planets.
And here's one thing that I keep telling my audience when I started this podcast. I'm like, limited beliefs, mental programmings, even emotional energetic traumas is what's keeping us prisoners from opening up our conscious to get to that level. If we're constantly living in the past, those energies, now think about this, we're the woman, we bring life into this earth. So whatever we're experiencing, so is the baby experiencing. That energy, that emotion, that trauma gets
That
passed
explains my
down.
problem. My mother was miserable.
But then I question, well, I was in my mother's womb, she was in her mother's womb. How far does this go back
Yeah.
from the
I want to
beginning?
say that in this lifetime, it goes back 7 generations, that impactful dream that I've not had since. It's important, these kind of shows. I'm so glad you're doing this show.
Oh, thank
And
you.
it's so important now to the Zennials and the Millennials for them to understand this as well, because, they've embraced astrology like never before. And if you want more, I am at stargalnetwork.com. That's my website,
And it's in the notes.
stargalnetwork.com.
So
And
they
is in the
find
notes.
it.
And then zodiacmagicpodcast.com is my show, where we go and look at the transits every week. So, it's just so important for the young people who are struggling so much with depression, to allow themselves these kind of journeys into the unknown, and to let themselves explore, and maybe get yourself to college, and then open up a bunch of crazy books you find in the library by people like P.D. Ouspensky and even the Bible. I mean, I read a lot of that, and it's all energy. So all these energies, and then if you let yourself and I believe in the power of THC, I believe in the power of mushrooms. I believe that we do need mind expansion, and that is the new medicine that's available to us. It is from an herb. I do believe it needs to be controlled. But there was one point in my meditation, Kimberly, where I was able to start seeing this blue light, which looked like a star, came up out of the blue. Like right now, I can just see it. I see this blue light. And is that the light at the end of the tunnel? Is that the light I'm going to go through when it's all over? My father almost passed last week, and the light got bigger for the first time and then went back, which makes me think as I approach the end, it will get bigger again to go through. And backing up into a previous conversation we were having about the near-death experience in the frame per frame, when you can really see every moment of your life the way I did up to the age of 18, I call it packing my bags. So my bags are packed up to the age of 18. So if I had a sudden, more dramatic death, I wouldn't have to sort out 0 to 18. And that's an advantage, because you do need to sort out this brain or the soul experience before moving on. It's like a filing cabinet.
Well,
So
I thought, I mean, like, because you asked this question, wonder what, if that's so. What if that you get a glimpse, but then when you go to the other side, then you get the all knowing, even from your past life and all the experiences of why you came here on earth in the first place, to learn in order to grow and expand.
And why can't we take that knowledge with us when we pass? Why does it have to become a mystery?
Well, it becomes a mystery when you come back. Then you start from scratch, zero remembrance.
I know, but wouldn't it be nice if we could remember that?
Well, I asked that same question. Like, well, why can't I
But we do
have
remember
that?
on some
And you know
level.
what I got out of that? You do. It's deep within you.
I see it in the chart. It's the nodes, it's the Chiron, it's where your deepest piercing. I call it a piercing. So the most compassionate people have been hurt the most.
Mm-hmm.
The most intuitive, often people
Misunderstood,
hurt the most.
bullied,
Yeah.
traumas.
Mhm.
They
And
go.
that's these young people today that need this message. They're the ones that are being hurt and seeing everything and won't go along with the other kids. And the light I was referring to earlier, they call it, I found out, it's called the blue pearl. So it's actually in reading, it's in literature. And who knew? I was like, oh my gosh, it's a blue pearl. And apparently you have to do a lot of meditation traditionally to get to this blue pearl. But it's so important that we find the part of ourselves that's comfortable in this conversation in this new generation and generations to come, because this is where we can recreate our past lives, where we become more comfortable with our past lives, where you look at your astrology chart, where you tune into Kimberly and you learn, wow, that's why I love gardening, because in a past life, maybe I had an entire castle. It's food, it's feast. And I'm naturally, when I touch something, and nature is a teacher and a link through. One time I was on campus at University of Kansas, and I literally became one with the tree. I was completely not on any psychedelics, unfortunately, having a real moment with life. And there I was, and I could feel the sap going in and out of the tree. I could feel the tree breathing. And when you have that kind of experience, it's like riding a bike. I don't think now when I look at a tree, like in wizard camp, they taught us that you're not just looking at nature, it's looking at you.
Yeah, I
It's
have
looking at you.
conversations out loud. I talk to nature. I'm like, oh, hello, Cardinal. How are you? Are you getting your food for today? Oh, you look so beautiful. And then I look at, and from the book that I read, Celestine Prophecy, which one of my daughters turned me onto it.
Great.
Then I listened to the audio. Then I watched the movie, and I'm like, oh my God, people need to really understand about energy. You could see the energy from Mother Nature.
Yeah.
You just got to tap into it. So
And where does love fit into this? Like, I work with so many clients that want a romance, want a relationship, are trying to meet someone online, no success.
And you wrote a book, Love Online.
And I did write my first book, Love Online, which was way ahead of its time, about online dating.
I had some really deep conversations with my highest self, source, whatever you want to call it. And when I started asking questions like, okay, because I came from abusive marriages and, just toxic relationships and I was like, I am so loving and caring and nurturing. I give my heart and soul to these people. Why am I getting treated this way? And then I started questioning, what is love then? Until I experienced it from within. When you can get honest with yourself and ask with such authenticity, you really want to know the truth. Love, we are love. Love is inside us trying to express itself. It's kind, it's compassionate, it's joyful, it's happiness. That's all expressions of love. But
So
we're
that takes
taught
the pressure off of meeting someone. But what about what about a listener that wants to meet someone?
okay, you got to first fall in love with yourself.
Okay, so let's say they do that. Then what? Then it'll just come?
When
Is it law of attraction?
there's aspects to that. It's like connecting the dots. When you start
See, I believe that.
when you start falling in love with yourself, taking care of yourself, like self-care, then okay, this is what I would ask. What would it feel like to have a loving relationship to where I can express and attract this love energy and share my completeness with someone that's going to complement it?
Okay, so I agree. So it is taking care of yourself. It is now I get the vibe of love like in an Abraham Hicks kind of way, who's one of my teachers. I love Abraham Hicks. She teaches me every day to stay focused on, if it feels good, think it. If
Yep.
it's a stinking thinking, ditch it. Stay in that vortex of feeling good about everything and you're moving along. That's love, because you're loving life. You love life. And there's some hedonism in there. Are you having pleasure? Are you allowing pleasure? Are you allowing your sensuality? Are you allowing your sexuality? Are you allowing that in without a partner? Are you maybe considering polyamory? Are you considering, bi? Are you hetero flexible? What the heck are you? Just go for it, for God's sakes. And don't worry about the puritanical teachings of the parent that said you're not allowed to go for the pleasure. Because the pleasure is the teacher. The pleasure will keep bringing in more of the same as long as nobody gets hurt, right?
Yes.
And it's when it gets boring and redundant and you're playing a game, and you use my favorite word of all, authenticity.
And here's another thing. I love Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Mm-hmm.
Change your feeling will change your destiny.
Yes.
Well, God is love, and we
Right.
are all gods. We're
Okay.
spiritual, divine beings, sexual beings inside this
But
human being.
here's the thing. You can get it on a conscious level, right? You can get it on a conscious level. And you can, when I remind myself or when I'm talking to an amazing lady like you, it's like, yeah, this feels good. This feels real good. But traditionally, typically, most of us, okay, there is a track in the brain. Literally, they discovered there are physical rivers that have been created through predictive, repeatable thoughts, thought patterns, thought consciousness. Thoughts are an S curve when they go out. So they're like objects. They're real. They're like, the thoughts have a density. And they have and they're in the shape of an S, and they go out in like a radio. So you're out there transmitting, you're sending out your army out there to go get this thing I'm thinking about. And then you've got this thought pattern that's not changing, that you think you've changed because in that moment you're declaring it so. So many years of negative thinking around that thing, so many embedded experiences that you've talked about, this crusty kind of physical abuse in the body thing, that you have to dip into what is the 12th house in astrology, which is the unconscious. Now, how to get to the unconscious? That unconscious stores everything you could ever even begin to imagine about how to get out, not the conscious. The conscious can only drive 5% of the wheel. You have to hear a message over and over and over again as you sleep, as you wake, to even begin to shift the brain's plasticity in another direction toward, I can find the right man. I'm not going to attract the next one who's the abusive one, who's more fun than the nice one, who puts me on the roller coaster. And that's more interesting than just a nice guy. I've got to reframe that thought.
Change your mindset. And you talk to rivers. I look at it as little electric Dr. Joe Dispenza. You know, he does brain studies and how when you tap into become, instead of a somebody, a nobody, or from something to nothing, you go to that void, that empty space where there's no space, there's just this black, and when you can tap in, connect to that, it's like an euphoric orgasmic ecstasy.
Do you meditate with that?
I do different kinds of meditations. I'm like trying to find the one. And what I've been doing is listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza and Dr. Wayne Dyer, because there's some music in the background. Then there's bioenergy meditations where there's binary beats to get to the subconscious, which when every thought sparks, there's a spark, neuron, electrons sparking from a thought, especially when you add the emotional energy to it. So everything that we experience, even trauma, it gets downloaded into the subconscious. It's like it's a computer hardware drive. Then
so you're connecting a spark to an emotion. Can you say more about that?
It's scientific. If you could see how we think of 60,000 thoughts a day. There's these little sparks going that are lighting up from all our thoughts.
I got to get Doug Stephan on your show. He would love this, my co-host from Zodiac Magic. He would just love you, love this. You will love Doug. Anyway, sorry. So, because yes, when you attach an emotion to a desire and you allow yourself to have that emotion, and so many of us are walking around like the living dead, drinking, drugging, sexing, whatever, to go unconscious, because we're really spirit deprived, right? Spirit in a bottle, spirit. If you allow yourself an emotion, so now you're in this place we're discussing now of I would almost call it the cloud of unknowing. You're in this space of nothing. You're in the unknown. You're in the nothing, and from nothing can come something, and there's no thoughts. Don't think, don't think, don't think. So you're in this space of nothing. Now, what happens? Some emotion comes towards you. I want to make sure I understand how we got there.
You connect and feel. Feeling is the language to the soul, the body.
That's why I love acting. I mean, it's this an exploration of emotions and characters. I was talking to Sean Young about this. She's like, I get to play a bunch of different characters and feel all these feelings. Because a 9-to-5 job, you don't have an opportunity to feel anything. You're just supposed to show up and shut up and fit inside the wheel.
Become part of the matrix, the programming.
Oh dear, the blue pill or the red pill. Exactly. So when you're in touch with them and a desire, and so many of us have given up on desires because we've decided we can't have it. We're in resignation about the relationship that would make us happy. We're in resignation that we could have a breakthrough financially. Again, I just coming back to, we've got to reprogram our unconscious thinking, and it's not easy.
Or the subconscious,
but it is.
Unconscious. It's and then growing up, because I'm from the 80s, and it was like, go to school, get good grades, get a good job.
Right. Now I want to go back to something. I'm sorry, I keep coming back to this. So how long do you meditate when you meditate?
It's between 30 and 45 minutes.
And you're listening to a particular program of any kind?
I actually, like every morning, I'm like
you mentioned,
let's talk. And I'm actually, when I meditate, my eyes are open and I'm just like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. Look at the trees. Oh my God, look at the lizard going to get his breakfast. Oh my God, this is amazing. I feel, and I'm like, look at all the abundance.
Very Carlos Castaneda.
And I'm like, I am abundance. I'm connected to this. I am God expressing itself through me and this beautiful place. I'm like getting my energy up, just looking at everything again for the first time, falling in love with my experience that I'm right here, right now having when I get up in the morning and I have a cup of coffee and I have a cigarette. I'm like, wow, this is fucking gorgeous.
I have a little beer. No, I'm kidding. This is Kombucha. Probiotic kombucha, whatever.
Kombucha.
Yeah. I like my THC. I really think it's time we're honest. We're honest with what lights and floats, our boats and boats. So, I'm a highly creative person. I'm highly self-expressed. I've never been married, no children, child-free by choice. My life has been about painting, acting, drawing, comedy writing, stand-up comedy, improv comedy, movies, books, writing. And even though I've had a limited success, I could say I've had more than most, and I can say I went for my dream in spite of my success or lack thereof. And there was a write-up I saw about me on the internet once where, Laura Banks had the great first break of Star Trek II and discovered by Roger Corman, and she should be further along. And well, certainly karma will play a part in that, because when you look at my chart, when I pursue fame, it causes me pain. What that tells me is it's not like I won't pursue it, but it will cause me pain. And so now I'm less attached. Like I said, I started working with Pressman in 1985 and bringing the message of health and nutrition. And I cry when I think about it, because that was more important to me than going on and becoming whatever else I could have done, even though it looked pretty promising. But I'm not done, right? We're never done, but we can look back and have regrets. I think if you don't have some regrets, you're nuts. There's something where you go, well, wish I could have done that different. I think there's some truth in that. Not like you stay in the suffering. It's like suffering. Don't stay in the suffering, feel the suffering and let it go. It's not like you can't feel it, right? People are afraid to feel because they'll get stuck there. You won't get stuck there. Feel it.
Yes,
right?
because when you feel it, like they call it triggers. Being an intuitive transmedium coach, and I channel ancient civilization that
We're going to have you on Zodiac Magic. We will have you on the show. I will have Mary reach out to you. This
Laura,
is
I
amazing.
channel in another language that I've never in my life heard. And you know what started it? I started Native American. I recognized the Native American, but then all of a sudden something shifted, like a vortex opened up, and it was right during the most intense, amazing, beautiful orgasm with my current partner.
Wait a minute. Hold on. So you were having sex.
Uh-huh.
And you had a spiritual awakening, which is tantric, really?
Yeah.
Tantric in nature.
It was the most euphoric orgasm.
I want that. I want that. I want that.
But I just happened to have an orgasm, and then all of a sudden, this spirit channeled, and I was speaking a language that he's never heard. I heard, like I was hearing, but I was out. Like they came in at that time. I was into my orgasm, because I can have my orgasms last 10-15 minutes long.
God bless you. Wow. I don't know what she's having. My goodness gracious. Where can we get this? Let's put that in a bottle. 10 to 15 minutes of orgasm, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. I would think I might spontaneously combust like a drummer from Spinal Tap or something. You're serious as well. You're serious. See, because I'm all about the sex. I highly believe that sex is a great thing. It's pornographic now, which is unfortunate, because us poor ladies can't compete with what's going on in pornography. But if you just take it from even the work of Deepak Chopra, he will tell you that true awareness, consciousness, one in spirit, is the moment you're having sex.
Mm-hmm. Oh, trust me. After experiencing that, I'm like, religion's got it all fucking wrong.
What were you saying in this other language?
I don't. I have to start recording it, and I have a spiritual mentor that now she could translate, and I have a video recording of us, and I'm awake, and then it's like I come in, or they come in, I go out, and I come back too. It was weird, but I was like, holy shit. Who am I talking? And I could feel masculine energy, feminine energy.
But you don't. But what was but you don't know what was said.
She interpreted bits and pieces. She goes, their information's coming so fast.
Okay.
Because their frequencies are very higher than the human frequency, and it gets intense for me, because I'll take that frequency, that vibration. It's like I'm having a seizure, but I'm not. And I'll take it to the limit to where I can't take it no more, just for them to. I want to know what is the message that you have to help humanity, help to help us beings. So
Well, I guess the message is the experience in itself. So I'm here kind of wanting to hear what the linear message was, when in fact the message is that a woman can have a 10-minute orgasm. That's the message, don't you think?
you know what? I was on top of him, and I was
I
just,
see.
"Whoa!"
Well, I've also been exploring nudism. There's
really?
something about clothing, not that I've done it, I've tried it. I'm not going to say, more than once, but it is an extremely interesting thing. There may be an energetic to nature and nudity. I haven't put it together yet, but that's another episode. But you're certainly nude when you're having sex. So suffice it to say that there's only one spot in the body that can make you feel that way, which is so interesting. And thank God it isn't one giant clitoris, because then that we would not get anything done, right? But you know, it is a conversation on spirituality. Spirituality is connected to our sensuality in more ways than we want to think about, if we are in that more repressed category, or thinking we can get there without allowing in pleasure. But it's so important to allow ourselves to enjoy these meditations, to enjoy these kind of shows, to laugh, to share, to know that it's really about having fun, and it's not getting it linear in a linear way. I
Right.
was a minute ago. Like it's just this. She just had this orgasm, and then she spoke a language, and maybe just the moment you were a transponder and you were sending out a signal, like in Star Trek, to the universe, and I bet what I'm picking up right now is you were communicating with beings on another planet.
Yep. Yes. Oh, I'm getting hit. Woo!
Yeah. I have a girlfriend, she was on my show, SYFY Talk, SEVTOK, and she's an ET by the government specialist. She's in MUMFA,
MUFON.
I'm gonna write that down. MUFON, right?
Yep. And Roger Martin, he's been a guest on my show.
Yeah, you'd love SYFY.
He's into that, and I wanted to become an investigator because I'm all about aliens.
Well, SYFY just got on as a member of MUFON, and she's one of the go-to people in the country for UFOs and ETs, and she's had multiple experiences. In fact, an ET visited her and left a mark on her buttocks. And she was on my show, and I was looking at her astrology chart, and I'm looking at the planets, and I'm looking at the lines intersecting and all that. And Michael starts speaking to me, and I went, oh my gosh, I've never seen this before. You are a planet. Now, I didn't know in this lifetime, some entities can come in, some natives can come in as a planet.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's practically weeping as I'm doing her chart, as I come to this moment, which I do. I work a chart up to where it's like it all comes together. And she says, Star Wars, the movie, one of the books written about Star Wars, SYFY Talk is a planet in Star Wars.
Wow.
I did not know that. She is a planet. No, I had no idea. And then it came to me in the reading that the mark on her ass is a mark from ETs. Never call them aliens, always ETs. A mark on her butt was the place that, this is funny, the place that the ETs would mark so they had a place to land. It was her landing pad. And that's the end of my story.
Well, the thing about it is, I read a good book. Oh my gosh, the Conversations with God.
I hope. Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
Conversations with God. And God's like, I'm neither. This guy is just frustrated. This is how this dialogue goes. He's frustrated with his life, relationships, his career, and all. And he starts journaling.
Journaling, so important.
And he's like, if you're such a God, why am I suffering? Da 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 da. I mean, he's venting. And
yeah.
When the pen pauses, and
it saves my life. Journaling every day.
I'm starting to get back into it.
I can't meditate like you can, but I can journal like a crazy person. And I've decided that's my meditation, because it all comes out. And I think when I'm writing, I'm disconnecting from the thought, because they've discovered that when you write it down, you can see it better. It's clear. It's separate from you when it's in writing.
And it's part of the manifesting process. When you
Right.
write it down, it's like legit.
So I interrupted you then. So you were talking about somebody else, though.
Yes, but then he goes, the pen stops, and he couldn't move it, and all of a sudden he hears his voice, and he's like, "Well, are you gonna sit there and complain, or do you want to know the truth?"
You
And he's
can't
like,
handle the truth.
"Yeah," and he's like, "Okay." He goes, "Well, then how?" And reading this book, I read it 4 times already, and I listen to the audio every now and then just to refresh my memory. And I'm like, "Damn, I'm having the same conversations. Like he's having the same conversations that I had with you, you know?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
part of the chapters that I was reading, he's like, "I'm neither male or female. I'm neither white, red, black. I am just it.
And that's
In
Star
you,
Trek too. That's Star
expressing
Trek. Yeah.
myself with you. I'm
All the
experiencing
nationalities.
life with
Yeah.
you."
I had autonomous writing experience in college. There was a point in time when I was so involved in studying the world religions and mysticism and as a younger person that I still hold to this day as the peak experiences of my life. And I came back from a break and walked into my dormitory, and a plant had died, a jade plant in the corner of my house. And subsequently, I've attempted to grow jades, and they will never grow with me, I guess, because I killed one of their ancestors. But when I opened the door, oh, just a flood of the spirit of this plant just filled my body. And then in this same space and time in my life, over a few months, Christmas in Lawrence, Kansas time, I had autonomous writing where I just picked, and it happened in California too, where I picked up a pen and I just started needing to write. And it said the same thing over and over again. You are spirit, you're one with God. Consciousness raises when you think about to let go and release from the form that you are in, and the entity shall remain in the soul and the being. And that was amazing. And then I had an apportation where I saw a $10 bill in my mind. I went, okay, hi, $10 bill. And then I got up and I walked to the living room, and there was a book. I opened up the book and it was in the book. That's an apportation. That means I somehow, and there was Bhavudi, Sai Baba with Bhavudi, which was an ash that he would create. Another thing that would happen was trying to cram in all my spirit stories before we go. But another time, a woman was an old friend from college, and I was in New York City where I was living, and I was in Times Square. When I get the calling, if I'm doing something, I'll just start going in another direction. And it's a disconnect. I'd be like, oh, why am I, this isn't me. What are we doing now? I'm like, now I'm talking to somebody, and now I'm not really talking. It's a feeling. Okay, turn in here. Go into this restaurant. So I went into a restaurant in Times Square. All right, go into the bathroom. All right, I go in the bathroom. Comes out of the stall, a girl. She says, Laura was my friend from elementary school. She said, Laura, I'm having a nervous breakdown. I'm having a psychotic break. I need to get back to Kansas City. She manifested me in the bathroom in Times Square. And I knew it. And I got her on a bus and I got her home. Another time I had a dream of a diamond ring, and I saw it in my mind. And the next day I woke up, same thing. It was really important to somebody, I guess, this ring. And I'm doing that thing where I'm walking, I don't know why. And I go into a bathroom again, and there's the ring. And I knew where to take it to.
Wow, that's awesome.
So things like that. What am I doing? I'm playing with parallel universes. I'm playing with time and space as we create it. And my father, when he was about 95, he's getting in and out of awareness. And he just said one day, I went to visit him, he goes, Laura, what I got was that this is all happening all at once. When I was 5 years old and 6 years old and now 90, it's all happening now. It's all happening now. It's all happening now. It's not separate.
Wow. So let me ask you something. Based on my chart, because I was born 9/11/1968 on a Wednesday at 11:04 a.m. in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
11 what?
11:04 a.m.
In Fort Lauderdale. What about you?
Say what?
You want me to look at your chart, or do you have a specific question?
I just I want to see what you get from all
Do we
of
have
that.
time?
We
All
have
right,
time.
All right. Let's go to solar fire. Can you still see me, or did my screen change?
I can still see you.
Okay, so I'm going to Solar Fire Gold, which is a great software because it does your charts real fast, and I sell Solar Fire. So you go to new, and I put in you.
LEY is Kimberly.
Mm-hmm.
That's very important.
I just have to leave in about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Kimberly and
Ley.
9/11/68. That's September 11th. September, powerful day. 19, you're 11, which is nice. 68. September 11th, 1968. And 11 again. No wonder we got this 11 number working. 11:04 a.m. Fort Lauderdale.
Now, do you need my full name or do
No,
you?
I don't need name. Doesn't really matter
Oh.
right now. FL. Okay. Okay. Fort Lauderdale. Fuller Heights Park. Fuller Heights?
No, Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Yeah, it should be picking that up. Let me do it right. Country, state.
Wednesday.
Okay, so do you know your chart?
Not really. I had a picture of something. I had it on my app, and it just looked like Chinese to me. I'm like, what the hell does all this mean? Like, I have no idea.
Well,
It's
I
interesting, but I don't get it.
You know what? For some reason, it's not picking up Fort Lauderdale, and maybe if I spell out, it's giving me that Fuller Heights, and I just want to get this right because there's no point in doing this if it's not right. Of course, you are a Virgo, so that makes you very, very. The major obstacle in this lifetime, the sun is in a detriment position in the sign Virgo as the sun position, only because there's a little bit of a stress on the body, physical health. You want to be very careful that you do everything healthy wise to manage your health, and because there's a nervous energy in a typical Virgo, which just exhausts them because they see every outcome as what could be, would be, and they stay in their heads a lot. So you're doing everything right to be in that higher consciousness and rising above that Virgo tendency because you're a 4-planet Virgo. So your sun, Jupiter, Mercury, Pluto in Virgo. So, and your Jupiter's conjunct your sun. So you have an angel. You're very fortunate in this lifetime. Do you feel that way?
What, that I'm an angel?
That you have had some good fortune in this lifetime?
Sometimes, yeah. Little small fortunes, it's going to expand and grow and get bigger.
Well, so I'm here to let you know that you have tremendous opportunity with a sun conjunct Jupiter, and that you could go as big as you want. The Mercury is a good enough, I'll call, conjunction. So separating yourself from your thinking is hugely important because that Mercury is crowding you a little bit. So we want you to always be expanding toward the nothingness. You've got Uranus there, so ideas come to you in a flash. I knew you had Uranus near the sun because you're receiving messages. And then Venus then moves into Libra. Venus and Libra are very loving. This is all in the 11th house of groups and organizations, and Mars at the top. So you could become very, very well known. Are you well known yet? You will be.
I'm working on it.
You have every right to work on it. You have every planet in your favor. Tremendous opportunities in large groups and organizations. So if you could get your message in front of, say, an IBM type organization or a Google company, or just get it. You could go as big as you want in your joint ventures. Go as big as you can imagine playing with.
I've always wanted Streamline TV. I've always wanted my TV show, but I knew that certain things weren't lining up, so I just put them on the back burner. But now it's virtual now.
Well, so you could not just do a show. You couldn't just do a show. You could do a network. Okay, this is the chart of a VP of opportunity. This is someone that's playing in the world big time, but it's not going to happen as a general message, Kimberly. What the best advice I can give you for profound breakthrough in your career is to move toward large groups and organizations with your message. So if all those planets that are in the 11th and your house in the 11th is intercept, so it's huge with 6 planets, which is large groups and organizations. I want you to read about the 11th house until you can't read about it anymore. And I'll send you your chart. You've got a 10th house Mars, which is about just success in the world, with just out in the world publicly. But that 11th house really emphasizes success with large groups and organizations. So you find the VP of booking guests and bringing in speakers that are open to your message, and you will be very successful if you stay focused on that message until you've crafted that message to getting with an agent or to people of these large groups and organizations. The IBMs, the ITTs of the spirit world, really go big. The juries just, you could really play to the large groups.
Okay.
Organized large groups, not disorganized.
Organized.
Disorganized would be 10th house. 11th house has moved into organization in the sign Aquarius.
Organized large groups.
Yeah, moon in Taurus, so you're stubborn. You love beauty. It's naturally dignified there. You have a dignity with the moon there. 7th house relationship, so you get emotional expression through your relationship. Saturn in 6th house, day-to-day work has been difficult for you. You're not crazy about it. You're kind of impulsive about it. You don't like to be tied to it. It kind of drags you down, but you're good at it day to day. You've had some pain and suffering around speculation, so you really like to keep things kind of tightly organized. Scorpioning, so you're very, sexual, sensual, in the world of intense feelings. You get bored by small talk. So a Virgo sun, moon, Taurus, very buttoned down, but that Scorpio will have nothing to do with being buttoned down and just bust you wide open. But in a way, people are going to be able to trust your message because you've put in your homework. That Virgo is due diligent and understanding and practical, and that moon in Taurus is practical, and that Scorpio rising. So there's two parts of your personality. There's that button down presentation, and there's a wild woman.
Oh yeah.
And Neptune and Scorpio in the first house. So your identity is strongly based in this understanding of Neptunian experiences and philosophies. And I could go on and on, but that's what we got for today.
And we were talking about sex earlier, and our sexuality and our sensuality. I've even explored swinging, and
Yes.
it's I love it.
Yes. Tell me why.
I love it.
Why?
Because it doesn't matter what gender, what color, it's tapping in. And I have a feeling that I'm doing it for healing aspects of helping people heal whatever they're able to and ready to heal, and they don't even know it.
What if we're just monkeys? What if we're just monkeys and we totally love the freshness and the newness and the being someone loving us in a way and someone admiring us in a new way, and it's not all up to your partner. And poly, I believe, is in many ways the answer, and I believe that will be the future.
Yeah.
That will be the younger generation that will have
It's having open relationships. You could still be, with a partner, but you explore and expand.
Amen, sister. And on that note, I got to go to a hairdresser.
Oh, good. Enjoy your.
This has been a great conversation. I don't want to be late for a hairdresser.
Well, you look gorgeous as ever.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for. I gotta have you back. Let me know.
Namaste. You'll have Doug on. You'll come on my show. My people call your people. It'll be fun.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you again, Laura.
Thank you. Mwah. It's been wonderful. Mwah. Bye.
Well, there you go. You never know who I'm going to have on my show or what we're even going to talk about. So stay tuned for the next episode of Wake Up with KC.
Do you agree that, it's time that we all wake up and take responsibility, even for our ancestors that did not know any better?
Been waiting patiently to have this kind of conversation. Whoops. Hi, I'm still here. Just stay tuned for next episode. Have an awesome week, a day.